Untitled. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Look, it's hard to complain when you're undefeated after 4 games in the league, and a couple of really tough matches this week. Anyway, that we've sort of come out of with points, so not much to complain about, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Best start to a second division season since 1987. I think I saw was the stat. Pretty remarkable. Sitting here chatting to. I've completely forgotten. Were you on last week? I've completely
No,
no. It was Brad. It was Brad who was on last week. That's right. Talking about these games and talking about the tough tests that Norwich and Burnley would display, and then obviously we've got West Brom to talk about as well, who we have on the weekend. As a pretty tough group of fixtures, and a group of fixtures that we'd sort of get a good sort of measuring stick of where we are compared to the top teams in the division. But also a set of games where, because we've had those results to start the season, we weren't as under pressure to get results in this couple of games. But get a result we did. That win against Norwich was absolutely brilliant. I do have a confession to make that I haven't actually watched either of these two games live. Had a big run on the Sunday after the Norwich game, so I wasn't able to stay up for that one. And then just plain old slept through my alarm for the Burnley fixture. So I have seen the highlights, and I will try to talk to the games as much as possible, but I will be leaning on Dan for any in-depth analysis we want to delve into with these fixtures. But I guess starting with that Norwich game, how did you see it?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I think just in general, it's been nice. Like we've actually played a lot of really good football so far this season. We certainly started the game under the pump, and Norwich came out really, really hard. And I think they've had a less than stellar start to the season, and I think they really wanted to come out and try and make a statement and take that game, take the advantage early on, silence the home crowd and all those sorts of things. And they did pressure us. I think I was just watching some of the highlights before, and I actually was watching the Norwich highlights. I'd had their commentary, but
right.
something like that. I was just the one that popped up. But they had they're saying that in the first 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes, they'd had 6 shots, I think, on target. They just came out of the blocks so hard, which I guess just goes to show, like, Ingram's started the season really well. The defense is still going really well. You sort of feel like, we're giving away all these shots. The defense mustn't be doing their job, but I don't necessarily believe that's entirely the case. I feel like we are still working really hard as a unit, and we're working hard to pressure the strikers to limit, so they're not getting the time at least to take those shots and place them properly and everything. So I think there's obviously still work to do in there, and I think which it was the goal, I think, in the Burnley game that was where it was a through ball where I think Coyle was out of position, which really allowed that them to sneak in behind and play it back across goals. But I thought we defended sensationally in the Norwich game, particularly late on after we changed formation and we took off some of our heavy hitters and sort of brought in the backups, and we switched to a much more defensive. We went to 5 at the back, and we just sort of were playing to hold the lead. I think Greaves clears off the line at one point. And just those are the moments that, can, I guess, they add up through the course of the season and determine how, well or poorly you go. So I think it's sort of just a continuation, because I think overall, realistically, last season, our defense was pretty good for the most part, bar I think 1 or 2 games. But even through that barren period to start the season last year, we weren't conceding lots and lots of goals. We just were struggling to find the net ourselves. So we sort of seem to have a bit more balance about us this season, a bit more threat going forward. The right blokes in and around in the attacking third to poke the ball home and create some dangerous chances. And I think Figueiredo has been a great acquisition, really solidifying that defensive line, a bit of experience. apart from he needs some new boots, which will.
There was that moment early in the game where he slipped over and let them in for sure. Yeah. And look, you say there, having the right guys up front to tap the ball home can't go past talking about Oscar and his 2 goals in this game. And I think I did see the comment somewhere. It might have been from Dean Smith, or it might have been a pundit or someone saying that he was a bit fortunate or a bit lucky with his finishes. And I don't think you can really say that, because I think especially for that first goal, he creates that goal himself. Like his effort and work rate to sort of bring the ball down first of all, then to press the defense and force that error where they've cleared it into their own man, into Omobamidele, allows him that chance to score the goal. I don't think it's as simple as saying that, it's not like he was just a bystander and the ball's kind of just fallen to him and he's tapped it home. He's created that chance himself. Second one, I mean, yes, that's a bit more right man, right place, but that was more of a team effort, I thought, where we really were. We had like 2 or 3 quick shots in succession where they sort of kept it out, but he managed to finally hammer it home. But 2 well taken goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, for one, you make your own luck, as a standard sort of a statement for football. You make your own luck, and 2, you're absolutely right on terms of, especially that first goal. It was a heavy touch off his chest that presented the ball to the Norwich defenders anyway, but he harassed and pressured and harried them for that, and it's that pressure that forced them to try and panic clear it into, like, and it hit their defender and bounced down. And he still had to be alert. There's plenty of strikes out there that would have turned off at that point. Even if it had hit that defender, they wouldn't have been still on their toes, still ready, still like there. So I think, there's still plenty of things that he did right, which I think overrules, as you said, overrules the idea of luck in being fortunate in that scenario. And again, sort of the same with the second. It's a shot that's blocked that bounces out, to a shot that's blocked that bounces out, to a shot that's blocked that bounces out, and he's there to tap it home. Quickest to react. So I don't really get any. I think it's just more sour grapes. It's
the
like,
League One
I think
season all over
that's what I
again,
was just
isn't
going to say.
it?
It's like I think you said in our chat. It's like listening to them all in the League One season. Every time we'd win, someone would say that, oh, they didn't deserve the win and we were unlucky or whatever. And just, it's nonsense. I don't know. I guess it's their way of trying to save grace or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Norwich under a bit of pressure with the way they've started, so any sort of excuse I expect. Seri was not fit for this game, again, also not fit for the Burnley game. But how did you see, I guess, the shape that we lined up with in midfield? I think it was Jones who sort of pushed into that midfield role, and seemed to play particularly well there.
Look, the last 2 games are going to make it very interesting for when Seri's fit again, is my take on it, because regardless of his experience last year and the wages he's on, it, at worst, the team has performed on par with when he was in the team, in the 11. But I'd argue to say that they've actually performed better in these last 2 games, and that may very well be that we're just 2 games further into the season and it's a bit more, they're a bit up to match fitness, more. But I don't it for when you look at them, like the names on paper, and you go, oh, Seri's out and we've got Jones in. And this is not meant to be a slight on Jones, but you sort of go, oh, that's a big loss. But I don't think we really felt it, and I feel like we've actually played. Yeah, I feel like Jones actually played better than Seri has so far this season. So.
And I think I like the thing with Jones as well. And we saw it, I think, towards the end of last season as well. He was playing that midfield role. The flexibility that it does mean that he can drop into a back 3 if needed when we're defending. And then when we are attacking, he can push forward that bit more. I think he offers that flexibility that obviously Seri couldn't really drop into a back 3 if needed. So it means if we need to make a sub or whatever, it gives us a lot more options in terms of how we want to change our shape.
I also feel like, I don't know whether it's just the start of the season, but it feels like Seri hasn't been all that mobile, less than I was expecting. Whereas Jones and Slater together are a very, very mobile, very agile pairing, and that sort of, I think it's benefited us in that sense. I think mostly.
Yeah, no doubt. And then Ramsey for Norwich. I mean, we had an Aaron Ramsey goal against us, and his namesake playing for Norwich today. Well, on the weekend for them, missed a couple of decent chances to level it up. So I think, as you said, in terms of making your own luck in games, certainly the luck wasn't with Norwich. I mean, they not through a lack of trying. They did try to sort of hammer the door down. So you could argue on another day maybe we don't walk away with the 3 points, but coupled with a terrific display from Ingram, as you said earlier as well, Greaves clearing that header off the line as well, was just a terrific defensive display from us.
Yeah, I think if bloody Dean Smith's going to be upset about anything, it should be that Ramsey miss, because he was sliding in at the back post. He had open goal, open net, nothing, but he just had to tap, and he somehow managed to put it up and wide. So that'd be my real concern if I was the if I was the gaffer at Norwich. But yeah, look, they really did pressure real very very early. We went under a lot of pressure, and we sort of wrestled that back a little bit through the middle section of the game. But once we got the two ahead and we reverted to a more defensive shape, they then really hammered us again for about probably the last 20 minutes of that game, and we did really really well to keep them out. So a really good, I think, just it's a good all round performance against a team that many were expecting to sort of with they've still got Pookie and some of those guys that, like, last time I was in the championship, scored a bag full, is quality at this level. So I think we've done well to contain that squad, that side.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the comment in the chat as well about Tufan taking a better corner than Seri as well. And it's a player we haven't really touched on yet, and I'll probably talk more about him in the Burnley fixture. But we've sort of been going on about him in the chat that, I have to hold my hand up. I don't think I've been more wrong about a City signing than I've been about Ozan Tufan and the way that he started his City career.
Yeah, look, it's I remember when we signed him and we were looking at what the Watford fans were saying, and how he's just he's overweight and he wasn't fit and he didn't really show anything. And I don't know whether Watford actually got the same bloke. It can't possibly be, because he's been absolutely sensational for us. And I don't know whether it must come down to the dressing room and Ajun and Shota and those guys, because whatever they've done, they've obviously made him feel at home and welcome and made him feel important, because he's just been beyond my expectation, especially even from the preseason to now. I watched in a couple of the preseason games and I thought he's got some quality, but it doesn't feel like he's putting a lot of effort in. And I was sort of like, oh, it's reminding me much of the Ben Arthurs and the Markovic's, and the guys that had all the potential in the world but didn't really want to put a shift in. But boy, has he proved us wrong, or proved me wrong.
I think the only comparison I can think of in terms of such a stark turnaround in perception of a player is probably Alex Bruce, and go with me on this comparison. But basically, when we signed Alex Bruce in a similar way, I think my perception was, oh, we're signing the manager's son. He's not very good. He's going to probably start most games and be awful, and he's just going to drag the side down. And in a similar way, signing Tufan, I thought, oh, we're signing him because he's Turkish. Ajun loves him. He's going to be in the starting 11 every week, sort of dragging the side down. Managers can be forced to play him. And in both cases, the players actually proved me completely wrong and are actually brilliant contributors to the side. But that's probably the only comparison I can think of in terms of a player coming in with such a, I guess, sort of a negative or hesitant perception of them, and then absolutely proving us wrong. We'll talk more about Tufan in a second with that Burnley fixture, but just before we do, I'll get your MVP votes for this one, and then we'll chat Burnley.
I think I'm going to go 3 points, and this is going to feel real harsh, but I'm going to go 3 points to Ingram, because of one, the amount of saves that he made, but on top of that, a couple of really, really important ones, particularly there's a free kick late that Sad Manesh had given away, that Nunez took again and got it around the wall and in towards the far post, that Ingram dived sensationally to push around the post. And I think he preserved, I guess, between him and Greaves, preserved the 3 points. So I'll go 3 to Ingram. I am going to give 2 to Oscar. I guess, a point for each goal. It feels harsh because he probably does deserve 3 as well, but I'm not allowed to do that. It's good to see him off the mark, and hopefully now he can go on a bit of a run. Involved again at Burnley, so that's good. 2 goals and an assist now so far, so looking good. And I'll give the 1 point to Greaves, and for that the clearance off the line amongst many other important tackles.
Yeah, great shout. Yeah, I've basically gone the same 3, and I've just flipped Oscar and Ingram. So I've gone Oscar for my 3 votes, Ingram for the 2, and Greaves for the 1. Yeah, Oscar getting the 3 votes for the 2 goals. Having only watched the highlights, of course, I'm going to be very much swayed by that sort of positive action. There was a few fantastic saves as well, highlighted for Ingram, so that was certainly deserving of the 2 votes. And then Greaves for that header off the line, as a fantastic defensive display from him. Okay, well, so just quickly before we go into the Burnley game, for everyone listening along, if you're enjoying this content, if you can like and subscribe to the channel, would be brilliant. The more viewers that we get, the more it gets shared around. Is always great to get more viewers, more opinions, more comments as well. So that would be fantastic. Okay, so that Burnley game 1-1 as well. So, well, not as well, but 1-1, meaning that we've gone another game undefeated, which is fantastic to see. No changes from the previous side, which was also good. I mean, I guess great to see a bit of consistency in the side, although, as we sort of said, Seri's still out with that injury doubt, and it sounds as if he might not be back for the West Brom game either. So that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Yeah, I mean, I guess we've already sort of touched on that Tufan goal with that brilliant header flicked on from Oscar to sort of set him through. And just the composure. I just thought the composure was brilliant from him. And that's the sort of thing that I think we've been missing in the side in previous seasons, as you sort of touched on as well with that Norwich game, to have someone with that confidence and that ability to take that chance and to finish it as cleanly as he did.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. That over previous seasons with the players that we've had, and even some of the players that are still in the squad, I feel like that's the sort of chance that Wilkes would have stuffed up. Would have taken it in the box and then not felt comfortable to, on his right or something, and tried to pull it onto his left and done, something strange and sort of ruin the thing, or just absolutely blasted it into the, bloody into the stands. But yeah, the awareness, positioning, and a nice turn of pace as well. On top of the
Surprising, yeah.
the composure, to put that away, yeah, was sensational. So I think, yeah, I guess we did just talk about him before, but again, like, just reiterating, he's blowing away my expectations for how impactful he would be so soon. I thought, like, by midway through the season, maybe he'd start to sort of get up, or after 10 games or so, he'd get up and running and sort of start, he'd get fit or something, and he'd have a little bit of impact. But he's started like a house on fire.
An interesting element of having not watched the game live is that, of course, I sort of looked at the stats before having seen the highlights of the game, and my first instinct, looking at the possession stats and the shot statistics as well, is, gee, we've sort of come away with, we've kind of stolen a point here, given the way that Burnley seem to be dominating the fixture. So it is interesting then to get the view of someone who actually did watch the game and has a much better perspective of the game than I did. To sort of say, we did actually have quite a few chances that maybe didn't result in actual shots on goal, but that it sort of indicated the game was a lot more even than it looked, really.
Yeah, I think, I guess that's one aspect you lose when you've only got the stats to look at, is they don't necessarily tell the whole picture. There's only so many things that they can measure. So I feel like, absolutely, if you look at the stats, it would have felt very much like Burnley dominated the game, and there were large sections of the game where they had us under, a fair bit of pressure. But it felt tactically like we were set up for that. We were playing counter-attacking football against Burnley for whatever reason. I assume that they'd identified something that meant that was the way to go. which again is a nice change. Some diverse tactics being presented so far to us this season with a couple of different formations and some different play styles. So that's nice as well. But
yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. How you feel about? I mean, coming from a Grant McCann side where we were basically just 4-3-3 week in week out until he was forced to change. I think there's sort of two ways to look at it. It's sort of, the manager trying to find his best formation and to settle on a formation, or he's actually adapting and changing the style and the formation of the side to the players that he's got available and the sides that we're facing. And I mean, you can't really argue with the results we've got so far.
yeah, look, it feels a lot, in my opinion, that lots of people wrote shut it off before the season had even started. There was lots of people who were unimpressed by, the back end of last season, which I don't really understand. Like by the time we got to January and we brought him in, like the goal was very clearly just to survive in the championship, which we did. So I don't really get the hatred. I think we said, and it was always that this season would be the real test of his credentials, whether he would make it is once he was able to assemble his own squad and do what he wanted to do. But I think we're really starting to see there's quite a lot of tactical and strategic knowledge within Arveladze, because the ability to I think take stock of the situation at a given point in the game, and considering he obviously knows the players and knows, which ones he, like, trusts, I guess, to get the job done, which ones he, knows we can play attacking football with, which ones we just have to sort of, at the moment we've got quite a few injuries, and I guess there's some that are maybe making making the match day squad, which he may not choose if the full squad was fit and healthy. But I mean, I think it's a nice change. I think I feel like he's showing his tactical nous, really. I feel like he's made, for the most part, I think, good subs at good times. The only issue is that the quality that we're bringing on, the depth that we have at the moment. But bearing in mind, we've got 3 signings to get announced shortly. We've got how many on the injury table? You got there's Seri. We haven't even seen Cynic. We're not going to see Traore for a while. Obviously, Syed Manesh joins the injury list. Who else is Fleming's on the injury list?
Baxter as well.
I think he was on the bench for the Burnley
was he?
game, wasn't he?
Okay.
I think
I
he
might
was
have
on the
missed
bench
that.
for the Burnley game. But yeah, so we've got quite a few players.
Longman and Williams. Williams is coming back as
Yeah.
well.
So I think he's making the best of what he's got, and I feel like the choices and the changes that he's making are fairly appropriate for the situations that he's been making them. And I was talking about something, and then we've gone off on a big tangent. I forgot what I was
Yes,
talking
sorry,
about.
I forgot what we were talking
The stats
about.
and the game,
Yeah.
and so stats don't tell the full story. Burnley did dominate 4 sections of the game, but I felt like we created lots of attacking opportunities that didn't necessarily result in shots on target. Still not heaps, but I don't know what the final stats were, but it wouldn't have been many shots, maybe 6 or something. If it was 6 shots we had or something, then I'd say there was probably another 3 or 4 opportunities that didn't result in shots. So I don't know. I thought we managed the game pretty well. I sort of mentioned earlier that the goal came, the through ball slipped in behind Coyle, which then I can't remember their winger, but just played it across the
Just saying that breakaway is a dangerous one when that happened. Yeah.
Across the box for Rodriguez to pretty much like tap in on the line. So that was probably the most disappointing part. And Figueiredo needs some studs. Slipped twice in that game, which could have been dangerous. But that's, I guess it comes down to, you could say you could bring the luck back into the equation again there. But I think there's enough, there's swings and roundabouts, as we say. It's luck here and luck there, and everyone had a bit and lost a bit, but
Yeah, well, and a player who was particularly unlucky was Ali, out with a torn hamstring for potentially 4 to 6 weeks, I think was the prognosis. So I saw a comment somewhere suggesting that, that sort of puts in doubt his World Cup chances, but I don't think it's quite that significant because what are we now, middle of August? So he'd be back sort of start of October with a month and a half, 2 months to the World Cup. So I think that should be okay, assuming no setbacks. It does mean that I'd actually begun to think the last couple of weeks that for someone like a Ryan Longman, that getting injured at the start of the season was a really unfortunate timing for him, and we might not actually see a whole lot of him in the City squad just because of the fact we are reinforcing with so many forward players. And that getting injured meant that he wouldn't get that sort of chance to get into the squad. It does sort of present that chance now if he is fit. I guess the other option being Williams if he's the one to come in. But do you sort of see those two, I guess, as the main, I guess, the right wing or right forward option, I guess you'd say?
Yeah, I can't really think of anyone else who's really going to benefit that much from that.
I mean,
from
Wilkes, if he hangs around, I guess, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, I can't see, I just can't see him starting. That's the, he just doesn't seem to show enough. And I feel like he's obviously Shota Shota's come out and said that he likes Wilkes, that he knows there's something to him, and he's going to try and he wants him to stay and fight, and he wants to try and get the best out of him, and I feel like maybe he's giving him a little bit of game time, trying to tease that out of him, saying, "Oh, got to show, here's your opportunity, take your opportunity," but he just doesn't really. He just lumps around. He really just doesn't do a lot, which is really disappointing because we've seen him, in the League One season, and we've seen what he can do, and we've seen him at his best, and he just hasn't. He just hasn't shown it really for a better season, really.
I wonder if it's all a bit of mind games with Chef Wednesday to try to get them to up their offer. I know that sort of died off in the last couple of weeks, but I wonder if we're sort of saying, well, we're happy to keep him, we're happy to play him, to see if they'll actually come in and give us a little bit more, because it's gonna be interesting. Once we'll talk in a little bit about the new signings that are coming in the next couple of days. As you sort of said before, I just don't see a spot in the matchday squad for him, let alone the starting 11 once we've got everyone signed up.
Yeah, and he's not ever really shown that he's one who's actually going to fight, for his place and put his head down and work to improve. And when he's in the squad and he's, but he's fine, but he just hasn't, whenever there's been actual competition, genuine competition for his spot, he sort of buckles and just can't maintain the rage, or can't. Yeah. So it's a bit disappointing, but
guess we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
We sort of touched on there the goal for Burnley, and the shape, I guess. We sort of talked about Coyle being out of position as well, but I feel like Ali as well, potentially on that wing, because looking at it on the replays, it seemed as if they kind of split that ball between Ali and Coyle and really just got in to tap it home. I think I actually heard the stat that Ingram was about 8 minutes away from breaking the record for away minutes of clean sheets or something like that from Van der Sar, which is pretty crazy. It's an interesting one because we've only kept one clean sheet in the first 4. As you sort of said, it's similar to how we started last season, where we weren't conceding many, but the difference this time around is that we're actually scoring a couple up the other end. So, where we might have had a 1-0 defeat last year, we're actually getting a 2-1 win this time around. So it's interesting. If we can start turning some of these performances into clean sheets, then actually it makes us a whole lot more solid going forward as well. So I think there's still a lot of areas of improvement, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've set a really good foundation for the season ahead, probably even better than I would have expected for the first 4 games. But yeah, I think we have both touched on that there are certainly some areas that can still be improved, and whether that is going to come through the acquisitions and the signings that we've made, and whether that extra squad depth and things is going to be the driving force behind that. But a couple of areas of improvement, which I think primarily are in, I feel like defensively wide, our left and right backs are probably the weakest section of our back line, and tightening their communication or positioning up in a back four is one thing that needs to improve. And I think once we get some fit wingers actually driving down the line and putting decent crosses in, because that's probably been a really disappointing part for Oscar, is that we haven't actually put many good crosses into the box for him, and also for get Tete off the wing. He's doing a great job out there, but it's not really his go. So, which again, once you get actual wingers out there, and then you're going, okay, well, Oscar is coming off, then you're throwing Tete on instead of Wilkes into the center forward role, and it's a very suddenly you can actually still play the same game for the 90 minutes potentially.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, we will talk about those signings in just a second. I'll give my MVP votes first of all for this one. Hard to go past Tufan for the 3 votes. I thought his goal was really well taken. I think he created a couple of decent chances as well. His ability on the ball to just sort of open up the play was really fantastic. I think it was in this game where he and Oscar just sort of had this really sort of almost like a ping pong sort of 1-2, 1-2-3 sort of passing between them to really open up the play. And then suddenly Oscar was away into midfield to play the ball up the field, where the commentator was also sort of saying how they just make it look so easy. And that's that sort of quality play that we haven't had in previous seasons. And the sort of the understanding between the players is just sort of escalating each and every game that we're seeing. So that's great to see as well. 2 votes for someone we haven't really talked about, but Regan Slater. I think the fact that he's sort of made that midfield spot his own on merit. He's in that starting 11 despite all of the high profile and high money signings that we've made. As a player that we signed for £50,000 back in January.
I was about to say probably the best £50,000 signing.
Incredible. Yeah, absolutely. So 2 votes for him. I think he's put together a great opening month of the season, and I'm hoping that he can sort of hold on to that starting 11 spot and just keep going from strength to strength. And then I've given the 1 vote to Oscar. I thought that flicked on header for the assist for Tufan, and then his play in the game as well. I think having got those 2 goals to get off the mark against Norwich gives him that sort of confidence that we're now seeing in his general play. And just exciting to see what he's going to do over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone very similar, but I've got a slight change. I've just given so I've gone 3 to Tufan for all of the reasons you gave. Sensational, created lots and lots of opportunities, scored the goal, great all-round performance. I've gone 2 to Slater. For I guess just another really strong performance, and a couple of key moments where when we've been under pressure, he's found a way to drive the ball out of danger and release. I think against Burnley we almost got stuck with it on the edge of the box. It bounced out. Slater took it, burned 2 players, drove forward 10 or 15 yards, and then played a long ball over the top. I think that was the one that Ali did his hamstring on.
Oh, yeah.
Played the ball over in front of Ali, who then drove it into the box. And, I think if he hadn't done his hamstring there, I think that would have been a second goal.
Yeah.
Because it feels like he's driving and then something happens and it forces him to take his touch away from the goal, and it puts him into a bit of trouble. But yeah, I think 2 for Slater, another outstanding game, and with that moment being one of the big ones. I'm just going to give my 1 to Jones to complete the midfield trio. I think he had another really solid game. A couple of little dicey moments, but I think that recovered well and did enough right that deserves a mention.
Yeah, good shout. Good shout. Okay, well, yeah. So off-field discussion. So transfer news. We did hear, I think it was prior to the Norwich game, that we basically agreed a fee with Birmingham for Ryan Woods, formerly of Brentford as well. Don't know a whole lot about him. I mean, central midfielder, short, red ahead. So we're sort of thinking in the mold of Stephen Quinn, perhaps. Heard that he's quite versatile. He can play either right back or left back as well. So sort of as you were touching on before, that added depth or added option at fullback as well is a promising one. Sort of came out of left field. I mean, we hadn't really heard any mentions of that as a potential transfer before news essentially broke that he was having his medical and left out of the squad for Birmingham on the weekend, and then was pictured with Ajun at the Burnley game on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning our time as well. So that seems like that's just, I don't know what it is about the new media team. They seem to love a transfer announcement. They'll let everything else be sort of pictured and known about the player before they actually announce it. So we're just sort of waiting for that to become official for Woods.
I'm just
And then
wondering
yeah.
if Woods is, because wasn't there like there was a player that was a couple of weeks ago where Ajun said, "Oh, there's a player that no one's talking about."
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
Wondering if Woods is that player.
yeah, no, that's right.
Because
It's
literally every other player we've signed has at least been linked in some way before we've announced, but Woods just has absolutely come
just
out
popped
of
out of nowhere. Yeah.
out of nowhere. So
Yeah, no, good shout. So it could be that. And then, yeah, as you sort of said, the other two being Pelkas and Dervisoglu from Brentford. Halil Dervisoglu. I mean, Halil's probably going to be an easier way to refer to him. Pretty decent player as well. I mean, Brentford have sort of said that, well, Brentford supporters, I should say, have sort of said they're surprised that he had dropped down to the Championship. Obviously, there's that Turkish connection with Ajun, so I think he's probably considering a move that he wouldn't have otherwise considered for that factor. Got the assist for one of their goals on the opening day of the season, so he has been in and around their Premier League squad. Wasn't in the squad on the weekend for their game against United, which I'm sure he would have enjoyed being part of that. But again, I mean, not being involved in the squad indicates that transfer is also reasonably close. So, you know, a winger in Pelkas, a forward / a number 10 sort of player in Halil, and then Woods is sort of more of that central midfielder. What do you make of those three as, I say potential signings, but I mean, looking pretty likely.
I think I think they. I mean, time will tell whether they're good, but I feel they seem like they're the right sort of acquisitions that we need to fill out the depth in the squad. It sort of means that like someone like Woods, if he's on the bench, means that someone like Cannon is probably not on the bench.
Yeah.
And just, we're talking like slight upgrades. And the same thing, you go, well, okay, well, if Dervisoglu's on the bench and fighting between Tete and Oscar for the starting, then it means that, Wilkes or maybe Wilkes and, Cavill at some point maybe don't make the bench. And I think that just depth in the same, like with Pelkas, wherever he ends up, whether that's as a 10 or as a winger, that it's just more depth and hopefully more. I mean, should be more quality. So I think they'll be good acquisitions in that regard.
And it's pretty incredible to think, I mean, an undefeated start to the season, best start since 1987, sitting second in the table, and we're strengthening the squad. We're not sitting here, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was, when we were a point off the playoffs come January, and then we sold Jared Bowen and tumbled down the table. We're not sitting here selling a player. We're not, knock on wood that Jacob Greaves doesn't go anywhere, but we're not under any sort of pressure or stress that we're going to have to sell a player before the end of the window. We're actually looking to strengthen the squad. So it sort of bodes well for where we can look to aim for this season if we can sort of kick on from this start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think, because my thing's always been after the 10 games is like, I wonder what was my red flag. I think it was not scoring goals.
Yeah, I think it was. I think mine was conceding too many goals, and yours was not scoring goals or something. Yeah.
I was worried that after, if we got to 10 games and Oscar hadn't found the net, and Tete or whatever, Ali hadn't found the net. Well, I mean, obviously Ali's not going to after 10 games, I don't think, but I think we're on the right track, and you just got to keep collecting points, and you stay in that top little section, stay in that top 6 if you keep collecting points. So just look forward to the weekend and collect some more points, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go on to talk about that game on the weekend, we'll play our game of Who Am I? So I'll give you 4 clues. The first being the league appearances and goals for City, the year that they joined City, and then the year they departed, their position and the number on their shirt, and then finally their initials. So are you ready for this round of Who Am I?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Alrighty. So the first clue is I made 17 league appearances for City and I scored 4 goals.
17 and 4.
It's probably the first time that this first clue is actually like a good insight into the player, because it's such a strange three numbers.
Yeah, I'm like 17. That's the 17 that's catching me. I can think of a bunch of players who would have scored like 4 goals. But I'm like, who has made so few appearances?
The second clue might help on that one if you want the second one.
Yeah, I'm fully like, I'm pretty much blanking on the off the first clue.
Okay, so I joined City in 2017 on loan and departed the end of the season at the end of the loan. So
Is
17.
that?
So that's I don't want to narrow it down too far to help too much, but so 16-17 was the Premier League season, and then 17-18 was the Leonard Slutsky and Nigel Adkins season. So you're looking at someone
Okay.
in one of those seasons.
Then I'm gonna take a stab and say Nias.
Yeah, spot on. I was thinking you might go either Nias or Markovic, who you actually mentioned earlier in the show. I think he would have scored pretty similar. I reckon. I think he scored 2 or 3 for us as well. So no, good shout on Nias. I thought the 4 and 17 was a good one to sort of stump you.
Yeah, that did throw me. And then when you said talking about players that joined on loan for a bit, and I was thinking about like bloody Chris Martin and freaking everyone. I'm like, how did he score 4? I feel like he didn't score any. Did he get maybe 1? I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. No, good
And
shout.
yeah.
Good
Okay.
stuff. Okay, well, we'll talk now about that game against West Brom this weekend. So we've got. I was actually surprised to see we've only got the one game this week. I thought we were basically into the rhythm of 2 games a week, but fortuitously we've got a week's break between this game and the next one. But coming up against Steve Bruce as West Brom manager, I think we played them once with him as manager last season, where I think they beat us 1-0. I want to say. They're similarly to Norwich coming into this game under a little bit of pressure. They don't have a win in their first 4 games. They drew this morning. I think it was 0-0 with who did they play? I think they played Cardiff or someone. I'll double check on that. But yeah, a bit of pressure for them as a result of that. They've recruited quite heavily over the summer. They brought in John Swift from Reading and Jed Wallace from Millwall. So 2 pretty attacking, creative players who will no doubt cause us a couple of issues going forward. But look, I mean, I tend to think, looking at the games that we've just played against Norwich and Burnley, I see no reason that we should be concerned or overly concerned coming up against them.
Yeah, look, I know heading obviously into those games against Norwich and Burnley, there was we sort of was sitting looking at the upcoming fixtures going, Norwich, Burnley, West Brom, those are 3 tough games, to play in succession. And we sort of said, this will be the real barometer. This will be the real test to see where we're at. And, to pick up, 4 from the 6 available so far is outstanding. And I think the manner of those performances as well will give a lot of confidence to the squad. Disappointing for Ali, obviously in that Burnley game. So, but I think I see no reason why we shouldn't be expecting to take points.
Yeah, I think absolutely that there's no reason to approach this game as a, oh, well, we've got to set up as a defensive team and just sort of try and battle away for a point. I think certainly, like with the Burnley game, maybe later on, if we're drawing, maybe we do settle for a point, just because the impressions I get of West Brom, at least early in this season, is that they haven't clicked particularly well in attack, and so there might be that opportunity just to sort of frustrate them and wear them down in that manner. But look, as you said, I mean, if we'd sort of said before these three fixtures, oh, you can have 4 points or 5 points from West Brom, Burnley, and Norwich, we'd have taken that quite happily. And you sort of think, as we sort of said, so, getting through these three games, if we were to still be undefeated coming out the other side, it's a real statement of intent for the rest of the league as well. I think I already know there's a lot of people sort of saying, how are Hull up in second? Like people have just sort of associated us with, just coming up from League One a couple of seasons ago, not being a club of the same stature perhaps as a Sunderland, so you don't have that automatic assumption that we'll bounce back and start challenging for promotion so quickly. But people are going to start sitting up and taking notice, I think. So it's certainly an interesting game from a narrative point of view in that sense, that I think if we are to come away with a point or 3 points against West Brom, I think the dynamic of the season suddenly starts to look a whole lot different for us.
Yeah, and I think probably one important aspect of that hasn't been mentioned by us, at least so far, is the impact that the fans have had.
Yeah.
The home games, the stadiums have been chockers. I think between the which the
Norwich,
first and the second.
I meant to mention that Norwich game. Yeah,
and then Norwich, like they jumped. There was another 1,000 or something fans at the Norwich game than in the previous home game. So, and a good away support at the other games as well. So I think the impact. I don't know. It's the rejuvenation of the club as a whole. We've got through last season. Had the transition and the change, and now it's a new season and it's a fully new regime and a new squad. And I think the positivity that surrounds the place in general is sensational. I think that is a big part of the success that we're having as well, and I don't think that can be understated in any way.
No, 100%. I actually did mean to bring that up with the Norwich game when Oscar scored. I think it was the first goal, and the stadium just erupted. And the noise that's being created, and the sort of the passion and the joy from the supporters each and every game. And there was the news recently that they're opening the West Upper for the Sheffield United home game. So it seems as if the demand is there, the tickets are there, and sort of you just think the crowds are just going to go up and up this season as that wave of positivity and optimism sort of surges through the city. It's sort of funny with Bruce coming back to the MKM. We haven't seen crowds like this since those years under Bruce in the Premier League, and it'll be you sort of think like in recent years when the players have sort of praised the supporters and praised the atmosphere in the stadium, it's felt a little hollow because they're sometimes playing in front of 8,000 or 9,000. But now, genuinely, they have this huge sort of emotional support behind them each and every game.
Yeah, I think you touched on the noise, and it's been outstanding. There's not been like a quiet moment in any of the games that we've played at the MKM, which has been great. Whereas last season and in the previous seasons, where you can. There's nothing. You can hear the refs whistle easily and all those sorts of things. You can hear the manager yelling at the players on. So you can't hear any of that now. The mics can't pick it up because the crowd is so loud, and you can hear the chants, and it's such a good feeling. I wish I could be over there and a part of it, but stuck on the wrong side of the world.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like the last game I went to was against Sheffield United, where I think we would have only had, it would have been one of those sort of 8,000 sort of crowds, where I just remember rocking up with my tickets for my seat, and I'm like, I could have taken my pick of any seat in the Bay pretty much because it was that empty. And obviously I had been there for Premier League games where the place was full, and the comparison was so stark. So to see it getting back to that sort of level it's a brilliant place to be when it's rocking like that. And can't wait to try and get back over and experience that again. And that's, so as we say, it can only be galvanizing the players, and so it must be a huge sort of, I guess, 12th man almost for the players in these home games. And it looks like it's worked with moving the away supporters and having the home supporters behind each goal, just to help sort of increase that volume and increase that support for City at both ends.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, most of the decisions that Ajun and his team are making seem to be the right ones. So um, I think, yeah, it's just positive all around. And there's, I think I topped the episode by saying I don't really have a lot to complain about. And
Yeah.
the more you talk about the scenario and the situation, the less I can find, to complain about. There's just so many
Yeah.
positives just in general around the club at the moment. And after a few difficult years, it is like genuinely just a joy to watch and albeit through iFollow, but to watch and experience the success of the club.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about like this podcast started with our first promotion. Well, I shouldn't say first. Our promotion season to the Premier League under Bruce, where he then resigned in that summer. So we had, I think, a 4 or 5 episode first season, and that was that season, which was probably the last time the club's been as upwardly mobile and optimistic as it has been now. Other than, I guess, that League One season, which was also a pretty awesome season to follow, but. Those last few years under the Allams, after Bruce left, and the sort of turmoil and the managers and the crowds dropping and everything, this is sort of the most positive the club has been since we've been covering City, which is just awesome to see. I guess, yeah. So finally, just on the game, any changes to the lineup that you would make for this one? Obviously, Ali out. I guess we sort of touched on it earlier, potentially Longman or Williams to come in for him, and any others.
I can't see any reason to make any other unforced changes. I think everyone's been doing a great job, and as long as they're all pulled up fit and fine and healthy, then I would keep them the same. I'd suggest that Williams will probably come in on that right flank for Ali. He's been coming off the bench the last couple of games, so that's probably about it, really.
Fair enough. And then just a score prediction for this one. Do you see City pulling out another win?
Look, I was really unsure about what I was, it's one of those ones, again, like if you'd asked me a week ago before these last couple of games, I probably would have said, oh, we'll probably, maybe we'll lose 1-0 or 2-0. And now I'm torn between how positive I want to be or how realistic. I sort of feel like a point is an absolute minimum. I'd almost, the way we've been playing and, looking at a team that's not going anywhere near where they probably expect to be going, it's a good opportunity to capitalize on that. I'm just gonna let's go for 2-0 win, I reckon.
Nice.
Feel positive. Who's gonna score? I reckon Oscar gets another one. I'm not sure.
Tete off the mark, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe one of the wingers, Tete or Williams for the other one.
Yeah, nice one. I'm like you. I kind of feel like as soon as I give in and sort of tip a win and get too positive, we're gonna drop points or lose, and I'll just feel like, oh, why did I?
The only game I've tipped for a win is the cup game that we lost. So.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'll probably be cautious. I'll say a 1-1 draw because I just, I'm happy just to keep the points ticking over, and I'll take that point. I reckon Oscar's going to score another one. He seems to like scoring at the MKM, so I'm sure he'll get on the score sheet in this one as well. But thank you for joining me, Dan.
No, that's all right. As I said, it is quickly becoming an absolute joy to watch and discuss City again with all of the positivity that surrounds the joint.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant season with hopefully a lot more highs to come over the coming weeks and months. So we'll be here to cover all of that, discuss all the fallout from all our victories, numerous as they will be over this season, I'm sure. So until this time next week, come on, City.